Hi, this is Lydia, the lifestyle coach. So excited to be coming with another amazing interview today. Just such a privilege to have this individual on the show. And just to give you guys a little bit of background for those of you who are new, hello. I am a lifestyle coach. I help people in the world, humans of all sorts, to be free from food crazies like overeating, binge eating, bulimia, without using therapy or medication and not having to stress about it. Just like, okay, let's just fix this. I was a bulimic for years and years, and I'm now completely free. So this place is really about true freedom, about principles for just a great life, and being able to just use your own brain and the laboratory of your own life to really just have freedom and live how you want to. So I am so excited to delve into this topic today because with so many people that I help, it's like, okay, yes, I want to get rid of my eating disorder. Okay, let's get rid of your eating disorder. But we're whole people. We have lots of stuff going on, right? So I have so many people that I work with that, yeah, there's the eating disorder thing. Okay, let's fix that. You don't have to have a perfect life to do that. You don't have to fix all your problems or delve into all your trauma or, we can just fix the thing. But then once that's fixed, well, you might still have anxiety. You might still have emotional issues. You might still have some things you want to work through. And that's the good stuff of life, right? So I want to give you tools for that too. So on today, I'm so excited. You guys, we have Mike Basevic on the show to talk to us. And he's one of the most sought after behavioral experts in the world. So he's helped thousands of people eliminate their emotional challenges forever. And his work has been featured on Fox News, NBC, CBS, the Huffington Post, the New York Times, and WGN America. And Mike's specialty is really helping people rid themselves of anxiety, stress, and all other sorts of emotional challenges forever in just a few weeks, without the use of dangerous prescription drugs, medication, and it doesn't matter how long those issues have been around or how they got there. So excited to have this conversation with him today. And some of this may sound familiar in my approach. If you guys have seen my videos, it's like, yeah, let's just be done forever with this and move forward. And yeah, let's just learn how to do it. Our brains are amazing. Our life is amazing. So Mike, so happy to have you on the show. Welcome. Oh, let me make sure that you're unmuted. There we go.
Hi. All right, I'm unmuted. Thank you, Lydia.
Welcome.
Wonderful introduction, and I'm so happy to be with you. You know I'm a big fan of your work, and you're just the work you're doing to change lives, and you're just such a rock star. And I love your videos. I can't wait to see a new video on my feed. And you're just so talented and gifted, and the fact that you shared your gift with your clients in the world is just amazing. So thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
That is so sweet. Thank you so much. And, just being here in the world to help just people feel better. Like, I just admire so much that this is sort of the cause that we're both in. And so happy to have your expertise and your wisdom on the show today. So just getting started, just like with the basics, Mike, I would really love to hear, a lot of us have this idea of, okay, yeah, I know what anxiety is. I know what stress is. Mm-hmm. And that's probably sort of in a different category than like being a person that has anxiety in general, right?
Yeah.
So kind of help us to understand, like, what's the difference between being like stressed about something and then like having anxiety? Like, how do you parse those things out?
Well, any emotional challenge, if you will, it's all learned behavior, but a lot of people think they understand it, but then most people spend their time medicating or trying to overcome the challenge. So in other words, they have anxiety. So what do? They might have a panic attack. So they run to the hospital, or they medicate it, or they're literally spend their time dealing with the challenge instead of going to the cause, which is their state of being, which is what I want to talk about today. So, and I think emotional challenges, they're on the rise. ADHD, social anxiety, depression, all of that stuff's on the rise, and it's not getting any better, but most people misunderstand it. But the biggest misconception is that you have to live with this for the rest of your life, because you don't. And you can get through it rather quickly. And a lot of my clients get through their challenges in 2, 3, 4 weeks, no matter how long they've been around. So I think that's the biggest misconception, is that you have to live this way or you're branded this way. I have ADD and that's who I am for the rest of my life. Well, that's not the case. Anything, no matter what you're experiencing, you can move past it really quickly. So hopefully that answers your question, but just to let people know that there is an answer out there, and it's not cognitive therapy, it's not medication, it's not that stuff that keeps you kicking up the dust of your problems over and over again. It's literally identifying the challenge. Don't worry about where it came from. Some of that stuff's important, but the real thing that's important is, okay, where am I at today? And why am I here? And then where do I want to go? And that's really, really where the power is. And no matter where you're at now, everything can be overcome in a very short period of time.
That's beautiful, and that's so hopeful and helpful. And I know this is something that comes up so much is, we kind of get in this cycle where, okay, well, now it's my identity. I am an anxious person, and we're just kind of constantly feeding that. And really, would you say like making it worse by feeding that identity, right?
No question. And if you think about that branding, we start it really early. We compare our children to each other. We start grading kids in school, and we brand them then. That kid's a C student, that kid's an honor student, and then we literally sit them down behind a desk for 8 hours, and they're stimulated by life. Especially now, we have the world at our fingertips. We can access the world by a little box that we carry around in our pocket, and then we say to these kids, well, okay, I want you to sit down for 8 hours and don't talk. And then we're gonna judge you. We're gonna grade you on everything you do. And some kids have this remarkable memory, and they're good students. Other kids are bouncing around with their focus and things, and they're so creative that they can't really sit down and concentrate. And then we say, okay, well, that kid's a B student, that kid's an honor student. They're on the dean's list. And then what does that do for kids? Some kids start identifying with failure. I'm only a C or a D student. And now I'm not as good as that A student, or yeah, I'm anxious, and because I'm bouncing off the walls a little bit. So what happens? Parents take that child to a let's say a psychologist or maybe a therapist, and they say, well, you're anxious, so now you have ADD or ADHD, and now it's not getting any better, because it won't get better if you keep feeding into it. So then pretty soon, this young person who's, probably, they all have gifts, all young people have gifts, but now they start branding themselves, identifying with the average student, the failure, comparing themselves to others, or maybe they have ADD. And now many people take that stuff with them for the rest of their lives. So the branding starts young, and then everything else that we experience along the way, we keep sort of cementing in, this is who we are, and this is what we're going to experience. So hopefully that makes sense to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like, it's starting from a very young age. There's lots of external factors, lots of messages, lots of brands.
Yeah.
So talking about, I know that's one thing that comes up is sort of this confusion for why do I feel this way? Like, where did this come from? You've talked a little bit about sort of those early factors. What are some other reasons really where, low self-esteem, stress, anxiety, where does this essentially come from when we start developing these feelings, Mike?
Yeah, that's a really important understanding, Lydia. And, our brain is different than our mind. Our mind is everything. Our mind is so much more than our brain. A brain is essentially a switching station that receives signals and sends signals. So if you and I are together and I high-fived you, you'd lift your hand up and you'd give me a high five. And that's the brain sending the signals to the body to do that. But the mind is so much more. Our mind is our emotions. It's our body. It's our cells. It's everything. It's our soul. And we have two parts to our mind, our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. And that conscious mind is that active mind. What shirt am I going to wear today? What road am I going to take to work? What should I eat for lunch? That's, we have hundreds or thousands of conscious thoughts throughout the day. Our subconscious mind is our quiet mind. There's many ways to look at the subconscious mind, but that's the mind that's running everything that we see. It's the machine running everything behind the scenes. And it's like a powerful awareness that records and captures everything from the time we're born until the time we leave. So that beautiful little baby that's sitting in the high chair and can't speak yet and just, grabbing for the Cheerios and everything, that's their conscious thought to grab the Cheerio or maybe mom or dad's keys or glasses. But the subconscious mind is working behind the scenes, and it's recording everything, every image and every experience that we see from the time we're born till the time we die, or time we move on from here, I should say. So the subconscious mind, it's like a DVR, it's like a recording device, and it's never off, and it records everything. So all that stuff we experience when we're younger, our parents, the upbringing, the lessons we get from them, and our extended family, and all of the things that we're taught and the beliefs that we're given. So if you take a child and you raise it in one part of the world, they're probably going to have an accent, or at least speak the language of that world. And if you take another child and you raise them in maybe in Texas here in the States, they might have a little bit of a Southern draw. And it's literally, they're capturing all that stuff. And if you take that same child and raise them with a certain religious beliefs or financial beliefs, and they're going to grow up having those beliefs or compared to other things. So all of that stuff that we capture throughout our entire lives is literally conditioning us, and it's turning into our personalities. So all the stuff we get from our parents, our coaches, our teachers, our experiences, our friends, our extended family, society, and now we have social media, so we can access the world, and the just society in general. It's constantly shaping us. So we record and store all that stuff, then we perceive it, and then it starts developing our personality, our habits, our beliefs. And if you think of belief, it's just a prolonged way of thinking, but it literally creates this rigid human that's left on the other side. And then the other most powerful thing that our subconscious mind captures is our experiences. So let's say when we're young, in an experience, and we all have a lot of experiences, but those experiences that are combined with really powerful emotions. Okay, let's say when we're young, our parents get divorced, or we get bullied in school, or I use an example in my book that, let's say a fifth grader is running a race in school and they lose, and they're embarrassed in front of all their classmates. Well, right away they feel bad about themselves, and most kids probably don't even care about it. But this particular kid goes home that day feeling really rotten and embarrassed because they lost the race to everyone. And then they start regurgitating that and replaying it because it was an emotional experience. And now they're literally now creating a state of being, which we'll talk about in a minute, but they're literally feeding their subconscious mind with thoughts of low self-esteem and inadequacy. I'm not good enough. I'm embarrassed. And then they keep replaying the event. Or as adults, most people have gotten their heart broken at one time or another. So that emotional experience of getting your heart broken is a painful experience that's captured by the subconscious mind. And that is a lot of times replayed over and over and over. The heartache, the sadness, the loneliness, the inadequacy. They dumped me. I can't believe what's wrong with me. Or the judgment. I wish I would have done this better. Or what if I would have done that better? And you're literally consciously feeding your subconscious mind all of that stuff over and over again. And then what we have on the other side of that is the person we are. And some of that stuff is really good. We feed ourselves empowering thoughts. We feed ourselves things that are really good. But a lot of that stuff is really bad. And that's where a lot of the emotional challenges come from, or the low self-esteem. When we look in the mirror, we're experts about seeing what's wrong with us or what we don't like. And then we continually feed ourselves. So hopefully that gives you a little idea, and maybe you have some questions from there.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's one of these things that sort of builds up through our experience. So from what I'm hearing you say, Mike, is, you can have an experience that kind of creates a pattern of thought, right?
Yes.
Sort of a belief that's going on. And then pretty soon you just get good at, if you had this experience that creates low self-esteem, like, what's wrong with me, then you start gathering evidence you get good at saying what's wrong with me, and you get good at finding evidence for that, right? So,
oh, no question. So,
yeah.
So what happens is, let's just talk about, we get to pick a subject: anxiety, stress, inadequacy. Inadequacy is something that everyone can relate to. And as we've all felt, unloved, we've all felt inadequate at some times in our life, and we all felt insecure about who we are, instead of completely, like, everybody has gifts. I don't care where you're at in your life. We all have these wonderful, beautiful gifts to share. We all have these beautiful qualities. We're all, people are inherently kind. That's our natural state of being. But what happens is life sort of gets in the way. And it puts this mask of illusion, these glasses that we start seeing through a different lens. That's literally a fallacy. It's a lie. And so let's talk about that kid that maybe gets picked on in school, or doesn't feel really comfortable going to school and is a little bit shy or for whatever reason. And then they lose that race in school. Now they start feeling inadequate. And then they constantly feed their subconscious mind with conscious thoughts about repeating. And then pretty soon they do that. They rinse and repeat every day. And then they start adding more things to that list. And then they're in a state of being of inadequacy. And our state of being is essentially how we feel, what we think, and how we act in every area in our life. That's your state of being. So again, state of being is how we feel, how we think, and how we act in every area in our life. So let's say as a student or a young person, or even as an adult, somebody might have a state of being of complete confidence and certainty around their career, and maybe around their finances, or maybe in their relationship, things are going really well, but maybe their health and fitness, they might be in a state of being of inadequacy. And that's nothing more than learned behavior based on all their experiences. But once they've had those experiences and they're in that state of being of inadequacy, they continue to expand it every day, and it just grows and grows and grows. So a young person, for example, that might have an eating disorder, and I know that's a lot of the work that you're doing, is they might start feeling inadequate about themselves. And the next thing you know, this is another opportunity for that state of being to expand. Well, sure, let me get a food disorder. Let me get an eating disorder. Let me not feel good about myself. And here's just another opportunity for me to experience the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're saying, I mean, in different sorts of areas of life, we have different states of being,
Mm-hmm.
and those just kind of get perpetuated, right?
Exactly. It's always expanding. Our current state of being is always expanding, but the opportunity is to recognize it and make the shift. That's the work that I do a lot with my clients. So let's say somebody, they have some anxious thoughts going back to school, and most things that we're experiencing stem from our childhood. And therapy has it right with saying, okay, well, a lot of things stem from when you're young, but it's not about going back and regurgitating it all. It's not about saying, okay, let's go pinpoint the problem. Let's find out that, mom was tough on you and she put a lot of pressure on you, and that expanded in anxiety, or, dad was just never satisfied and was always, telling you what you needed to fix and what you didn't. So that developed it. Well, that's all great, but that's really not important. What's important is, okay, where are we at today? And maybe we can identify where some of the stuff came from, but where are we at today? Because it's nothing more than learned behavior, conditioned behavior, and a state of being. So what we want to do is start shifting the work. So the state of being, to go back to your question, let's say anxiety started when mom and dad kept telling the young person to get good grades in school. It's not, you need to get good grades, you need to get good grades. And then young person started to say, okay, here's a lot of pressure. I can't fail. I'm afraid to bring this report card home. I don't want to show my parents that I got a B on this test instead of an all A's. And they start to regurgitate, and they start to literally program themselves for anxiety. And then they get all worked up days leading to a big test, or when report cards are coming, and they start to literally grow this state of being of anxiety. And then so they get through that event, but then the next phase of their life, the anxiety is still there. So now we're going to attach the anxiety to our college courses or our relationships or whatever. But the one constant is, until we deal with that anxiety and that state of being and get rid of that quote unquote resistant energy, it's going to keep expanding. And that's why it starts as maybe some thoughts. It starts as maybe freaking out over a test or a relationship. And then pretty soon, when you're an adult, you're having panic attacks. You're trying to medicate it. You can't sleep at night because the anxiety is as soon as you wake up, your mind is racing, and then you find that you're only sleeping 3-4 hours a night, and it just keeps expanding. And then people are wearing it. It's affecting their physical health. It's affecting their relationships. If they just can't relax, and then maybe they develop a fear of flying, or maybe they can't be a passenger in a car. There's so many examples that I can give, but the one guarantee is these resistant emotions, these resistant states of being will keep expanding and expanding and expanding. That's why so many people, when they get into midlife, they start to shut down. They lose their optimism. They lose their zest for life, their energy. And even though they might be in better shape than they were, they just feel like they're always carrying around these sandbags. They just can't, they're tired and they're fatigued. And then you see all these commercials that for men, the testosterone pills and all these pills. It's all about medication medicating it to feel better. But if people just realize that if they got rid of all this internal baggage that they've been carrying around, then they start to feel better. And I'm sure that's consistent with a lot of the work that you're doing with your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking right now, for those of you who've seen the video about the false miracle cure, this is what I talk about, is in like, oh, okay, well, let's just go back and let's figure out exactly why you have an eating disorder and delve into your past. And as soon as we figure that out, then your eating disorder is going to magically go away. And I talk to so many women who literally have spent tens of thousands of dollars, upwards of 20 years of therapy. And they tell me, Lydia, I figured it out. I know exactly where my eating disorder started. And it didn't change my current eating disorder at all.
No.
So I love this message of, you know what, like, yeah, it might be fun facts of why you're initially anxious. But it sounds like for you, Mike, the approach that you see is so effective is, okay, yeah, that's built up. But let's talk about your state of being now and work on that moving forward.
Yeah, let's find out where you're at today, because it's nothing more than conditioned learned behavior. So let's find out where you're at now. And if there's some resistance present, I always call it resistance. And I call it a state of being that makes you feel good, acceptance, because you're flowing and you're moving and you're just gliding through life. Well, let's just find out where the resistance is so we can remove it. And here's what happens with when you go back and regurgitate that stuff from the past is it's an emotional experience. The only thing that's real is what? The right now, the present. It's the only thing that's real. Yet most people spend their life in one of two places. In the past, continuing to regurgitate the painful stories, to talk about it, to feel about it, to think about it. And every time you go back there, you're bringing it into the present because you're feeling bad about it all over again. And a lot of people have become experts at blaming their past as to why they can't be their best version of themselves today. So what do? We say, oh, we're trying to do this, but I can't because my dad didn't love me enough when I was a kid. Or, yeah, I'm broken because my parents got divorced. Well, we all have stuff. We all have stuff. And that just makes you normal. And a lot of people have, again, going back to inadequacy or judgment, a lot of people just think they're broken because they came from a broken family. Think about that. Or parents get divorced. That's so normal nowadays. And it doesn't define who you are unless you let it. So those past experiences, continuing to talk about them, to feel about them, to think about them, is literally bringing them back into the present and then literally expanding more of what you don't want, because you're literally, and then, or the other place a lot of people spend their time in, most people, is in the future. I need more money to pay this bill. What happens if I don't do this? I'm lonely. I need to meet my soulmate before I can be happy. I need to lose 40 pounds so I can look good at that reunion. And they're always stressed about things, or I need to, like I said, pay that bill, or or worried about my kids, or saving for their college, or I need the house and then I'll be happy. So many people are spending their time in either the past or the future instead of owning their power now and saying, okay, everything that's happened in the past is great. I can't go back and change it, so I might as well embrace it and accept it. I may not like some of it, but I'm gonna be okay with everything, because now I'm going to erase the whiteboard and decide who do I want to be moving forward. So let me erase all that stuff, and I'm going to get rid of the old limiting beliefs, and I'm going to get rid of all these rigid things that are preventing me from being the person that I want to be. And I'm going to keep building that bridge now every day. And people that are like chronic complainers that I work with, or they're pessimists, that's all resistance. And I say, it's like building a muscle. When we keep building it day, and then within a few weeks, people they feel amazing. And they're releasing a lot of this baggage they've been carrying around for years. And it's all about that. It's not about continuing to live in the past or live in the future. And it's all about being in the present and being aware. Like, okay, I have this stuff going on. I want to work through it. So I'm going to take all the steps to work through it. But it's not about identifying where it came from. That's not the case at all.
Yeah, no, I love that you say that. I mean, I can imagine just the weight being lifted, not even from fixing it, but just stopping to compound all of the emotional future and past stuff to reinforce that resistant state of being more and more. Even just letting that go, I think, would be an incredibly freeing step. So
no question. I mean, what you feed I know you talk a lot about eating, and what we feed our bodies. a lot of times is important, but what we feed our minds is crucial, because the mind-body connection is always there, and it's everything. And I've really become an expert at really having that strict mental filter about what I let in. And if it doesn't feel good, and I'm not surrounding myself with people who are bringing me up, okay, or at least making me feel good, if I'm surrounded by the energy vampires, that suck the life out of you because they're complaining and they're mad at life and they're mad at, they're drama-filled people. Well, if that's who you're surrounded with, then you can't swim in those waters every day and feel good. It's impossible. So what I always encourage people to do is have that diet for the mind. Be really, really selective about what you're taking in every day mentally, what you're thinking about, what you're feeling about, what you're talking about, what you're doing. And it all starts there with the mind and just what we're feeding. And if you're constantly feeding yourself past memories about things that were painful in the past, or things that you didn't like in your childhood, or the fact that you got bullied, and I got bullied when I was a kid. So before I learned all this stuff, I was a ball of stress and I was a ball of anxiety. And I learned that I had to put the clamps on it. I had to have a strict filter about what I let in mentally. And that's a big part of it. That's not all of it, but that's a big part of it. And going back and just continuing to try to identify where the problem came from, or talking about the past heartaches, is literally bringing it into the present. And so you have to have a strict diet for the mind.
Yeah, I love that, because what do we do more than think? Like all day, every day, like
All day.
whatever we're feeding ourselves thought-wise, we're feeding ourselves more of that than anything else, because we think
Yes.
more than we do anything else. No matter how much time your hobbies take up, it's not as much as you're thinking. So
Yes, no question. And our parents are, God love our parents. They're all well-meaning parents. Most parents, the vast majority of parents out there, truly love their kids and want the best for them. But a lot of parents are living with this fear and this anxiety. And kids, I know you've heard this before, but kids are told no 50, 60, 70,000 times before the age of like 3 or 4. It's crazy. And don't do that. You can't have that. Or when a kid comes home and they have like, I have this dream. Parents like, well, be realistic, be practical. That dream of being a millionaire or billionaire or changing the world, get a good job that's stable with good, and we're taught all those lessons when we're kids, and that's when we're impressionable, and that's when our mind is in theta, and theta is when we're sort of open for programming. That's from the time you're born till about 6 or 7 years old. And so we get all those lessons, and instead of like saying, okay, this child and this child, what are their passions? What are their strengths? What are their gifts? And let's continue to foster that. It's like putting water on a plant and letting it grow, and helping them to identify what they love in their life. I'm not trying to, like, when I raise my kids, and I have 3 kids as two step kids. So I've coached young people forever, and everyone has gifts. So it's all about identifying their passions and what they love and their gifts, and then cultivating and developing that, pouring water on that so they just continue to flourish, instead of making mini clones of me. I don't want many clones of me running around. Everybody's different. So it's all about that. And then when they identify a challenge, have the ability to teach them how to work through the challenge. And I remember, I'm married for the second time, hopefully the final time. And but when my kids were younger, when I got divorced, and I sat them down and said, listen, guys, you're not going to use this as an excuse. I know this is a painful experience. This is not convenient for anyone. And I know that at times you're going to feel a little bit disappointed for a variety of reasons, but you're never going to use this as an excuse to be less than your best self. So it's literally teaching and guiding and molding people to understand that every one of life's experiences is temporary. And it's not about being hardwired. It's not about being cemented or rooted. And the only thing that'll keep you there is the stories and the regurgitating of the past or the future and all that stuff. That's the only thing that's going to literally keep you where you're at right now. So hopefully that makes sense.
Absolutely. I love that, Mike. And, talking about one thing that you said is really having like a strict diet of the mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, be aware of what's coming in. So, understanding, hey, we're not hardwired this way. Like, we can change things. We can, become in more of this, flowing state where we're not being, resistant. So
Yes.
what would you say, just practically moving forward, if somebody wanted to take the first few steps of, I really want to start working on this for me, like, how would they start, having that diet of the mind? And what else would you suggest for people to really start making a change for them?
Well, there's a few things, and again, it's like building a muscle. It's literally building a muscle each day. So if somebody's just sort of programmed for negativity or has fed themselves a steady diet of insecurity or an inadequacy, every time they look in the mirror, they're not happy. Every time they go clothes shopping, they're not happy. Every time they just don't feel good about themselves. Well, we have to rebuild that muscle. So the diet for the mind is really important, and we can all reach for a better thought. So let's say we're thinking about that kind of stuff. Well, let's find something that feels good. And I'm not a big fan of being positive. Even though the diet for the mind is quote unquote being positive, but here's the problem with being positive is you can have this rumbling underneath internally, this emotional discourse like anxiety, stress, um, insecurity, rumbling underneath. But you say, well, I'm being positive, and that's the problem. The whole self-help world has gone to being positive or negative. Well, we want to be aware. So first things first is we want to be aware of what we're putting into our minds with our thoughts, our conversations, and our focus. So what are we focused on? Are we focused on the outcome? This is how I want to look in my clothes. This is the car I want. This is the relationship I want. This is the career I want. And developing that plan. Are we focused there? Or are we focused on everything that's gone wrong in our life or everything that's going wrong? So we want to shift our focus. And then in addition to having that mental filter and the diet for the mind, being strict about what we let in, and then we also want to always reach for the better thought, the thing that feels good. And everyone in their life, I don't care if it's a pet that they own or a child or a good friend that always makes them laugh, everyone has a thought that they can reach for that feels good, better than the bad thought that they're having now. So that's probably the first step, those two things, the mental filter and reaching for good thoughts and putting a clamp on the past and the future. And then the second thing is understanding and being aware of the state of being. Now, I could talk for hours on this subject about the subconscious mind and the state of being, but here's the simple truth. There's two states of being, acceptance and resistance. Now, we have a lot of emotions. We have stress, we have anxiety, we have fear, we have depression, we have isolation, we have loneliness, we have envy, jealousy, anger, rage. We also have emotions that feel good like excitement and love and laughter and happiness and peace and calm and safety and confidence. All of those things are available to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And essentially that's our state of being. So if we have a limiting belief, like life is tough, well, then we're in a state of being of difficulty. If we have a limiting emotion, like I don't feel good every day, I have anxiety, then we're in a state of being of anxiety or resistance. So it's really important to become aware of what your state of being is on a daily basis, because we want to be in a state of being of acceptance. And if we're in a state of being of resistance, we're literally attracting into our lives more resistance. So more things that don't make us feel good. So if we're in a state of being of anxiety, we're a magnet for anxiety. How can we experience anxiety in our life? Well, we could have an upcoming test. We talked about a student. We could be worried about our job. We could be stressed about our kids. There's so many ways that we can experience anxiety. But if you show me someone who's experiencing those things, then I know they're in a state of being of anxiety, or else they wouldn't be experiencing those things. So that's the power. That's the magic. So it's really identifying like, okay, it's all come from the past, what I fed my mind consciously and unconsciously, quietly. And this is developed into these states of being. So now I want to know where I'm at today so I can make a shift back into a state of being of acceptance. And there's so many things to do to get into a state of being of acceptance. But first and foremost, the most powerful thing is to accept your state of being, is to literally say, okay, everything's happened to this point. And yes, this breakup left me in a state of being of sadness. The struggle has left me in a state of being of limitation, whether it's financially or whatever. And so, okay, so I'm going to understand it, and it's okay. It's okay that I'm experiencing inadequacy. Yeah, I lost the race in school, and I thought about it for 3 years of my life, and I got bullied, and so it developed it's fine. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with me. It's okay. So I accept that I'm experiencing anxiety right now. That's okay. Or, it's literally about accepting where you're at, and instead of pushing against the resistance, because what you resist will persist. So what do we say? I'm not okay to have a fear of public speaking. It's not okay to be afraid. It's not okay to be anxious. Something's wrong with me. I'm broken. And then we try to grind through each day and put this veil over ourselves so we hide what we're truly experiencing. And then we get home at night, and when all the lights are off and we're laying in our bed, we're like, okay, how do I get through tomorrow? And that's not the case. The case is to own it, to accept it, to allow it. Like, yes, everything that's happened up to this point has left me in a state of being of fear or anxiety or inadequacy. It's all okay. That part is okay. So the fact that I've experienced that up to this point is fine. And now I'm just going to move through it and shift into a state of being of acceptance. And hopefully that helps. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And is that good understanding?
That's great. And I love that. And, there's so many parallels. I mean, Mike, I feel like we could just keep talking, right?
Oh, yeah, I'd go for hours.
This is so fun. But yeah, I love what you said. What we resist persists. I think that, like you said, with all these sort of self-help, hey, you have to be happy. As soon as you're saying, no, don't be sad. I see this and it amplifies it. So,
Sure.
What I say is deprivation drives cravings with ending eating disorders. This is something that I see so much. As soon as you say, no, I can't have that. No, I can't binge again. Whatever it is, all of a sudden that is the most intense feeling to do that thing. It actually drives it. So I love the clarity that you brought about, no, it's not forcing yourself into a different state. It's being aware of where you're at. And I find this so much of okay, the first thing is just awareness, because we're trying to hide and we're trying to not look at that. No, look, hey, it's okay. Look at it. And once you see what's there, then you can go from there, look out the window and then you know where to go.
Yes.
No, I can't look at this. It's too scary. It's the idea of the monster under the bed. As soon as you look, you don't have to make yourself not be afraid. You just see there's no monster, trying to convince yourself, no, there's no monster. I believe there's no monster. That'll make you scared of a monster for the rest of the night. It's telling yourself there is no monster. Right.
Yeah. It's so true. And I ran into somebody a few weeks ago and they were sad. And I said, what's going on? And they're like, well, my dog died. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, but I've been sad now for a few weeks, but they were resisting the sadness. Look, it's completely okay for you to be sad. It's completely okay. Just embrace the sadness. It's a normal emotion. We can't have sadness. We can't have happiness if we didn't have sadness, because then we wouldn't know what one feels like. We have to have both. And our gift as these spiritual beings having this physical experience is emotional. We can experience it all. We can experience pain and pleasure. We can experience confidence and fear. We can experience certainty and confusion. All of our emotions are normal and they're all necessary. So stop judging some as good or bad, because some emotions don't make us feel good, but they're not bad. They're just okay. And just you say, yeah, I say, okay, somebody broke my heart. I accept that I'm experiencing loneliness right now. It's okay. It's okay. And once you embrace that loneliness, and it's hard for people when I say that, but once you just sort of be okay with being inadequate for a little bit, or judging yourself, or being sad, then it just goes away. Because what you're doing is, when you allow yourself to experience everything, that's a state of being of acceptance. And a state of being of acceptance must create more acceptance, which is everything that feels good. So when you want to shift what's going on in your life, shift your state of being, and then everything lines up. Your beliefs start to wane a little bit, the rigid beliefs you've held, or the toxic thoughts. You just have no interest in going back into the past. And all of that stuff just moves through, because now you're in a state of being of acceptance. And when you're in a state of being of acceptance, acceptance must expand, and then you start feeling good. It's really magical and it's wonderful. And it's really all about just allowing yourself to experience it all and being okay, and then making a shift back to where you want to be.
That's absolutely beautiful. And the thrill on the other end of, okay, how you feel is totally justified. And one phrase that I use, let it swallow you whole. All of the sadness and whatever it is, let it just rush over you, swallow you whole. And then the thrill of you survived. You felt it and you still lived. And then there's this euphoria of oh my goodness, I can be really sad and still be alive.
Yes.
It's amazing, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
And most people believe that there's something after this experience. So whether it's God, a higher power, the universe, source energy. So if you think about it, we can experience pain and we can experience suffering or sadness on this plane. But if we're ultimately a part of a bigger power, then that's all temporary too. And so we really can't be hurt. We can experience hurt, but we can't be hurt. We can experience sadness or pain or struggle, but we really can't. We're not someone who ultimately is going to struggle eternally. So there's so much there, but it really is all about taking it easy on yourself, being gentle with yourself. Say, you know what, okay. You know, and if you had, I know you have a beautiful young daughter. If she was outside and she fell down on the sidewalk and skinned her knee and came in crying, would you tell her right away that it's not okay to cry and you're a bad person because you're crying? What would you do? You would just say,
yeah.
You'd make her feel better. You'd say, it's okay, babe. I know you're crying for a reason. You should. I can understand how much that hurts, and you feel better. And then 3 minutes later, she's off running around again because she's like, you know, her sadness was acknowledged. It was okay to be sad in that situation because, yeah, it hurt when you skinned your knee on the sidewalk. So, but when we become adults, we stop giving ourselves permission to be hurt. We stop giving ourselves permission to live in fear occasionally, or to be anxious, or to be, you know, inadequate. And you know what? The truth is, we're all perfectly inadequate, but that's what makes us beautiful, perfectly wonderful people. We've all fallen on the sidewalk, but unfortunately in life, what do? We look around to see who saw us. Instead of saying, you know what? We've all fallen on the sidewalk. It makes us normal, and that's okay too. I failed, and I'm going to embrace my failures, and you know what? I'm just going to try to become a better person each year. And it's, you know, in today's struggles, it's not about, you know, who we are. It's basically about who we've been to leading up to this. So now let's say, okay, I'm going to take it in a different direction starting today. And I'm going to do the best I can today. And I'm going to do the best I can tomorrow. And I'm going to keep building that each day. And I'm going to keep building this new muscle in the new direction I want to go. So that's essentially, yeah. And it's really just telling people, be gentle, be okay with yourself. Don't, you know, look in the mirror, and if you find one or two things you like, then focus on those for a while. Just think about those.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, I love that.
Because we can all, trust me, people are experts at identifying what's wrong with them. Become an expert in what's right with you. You know, identify those beautiful traits. And even if there's just one or two right now, you'll have a pretty long list in a couple of weeks. But start there and just start to see what's good, and then build from there.
Yeah. What a beautiful message. What an important and powerful message as well, Mike. I love that. For those watching who, you know, want more of you, want more support, want more of this incredible life-changing message. Like, where do people go? Like, where can they find more of you?
Okay, the best place to find me and where I'm active every day is on Facebook. So a private group called the Anxiety Free Executive.
And I will put a link in the show notes for any of you. Like, okay, where do I get there? There will be a link in the show notes.
Okay, good. Yeah. So that's probably the best place, the Anxiety Free Executive. And so if you reach out there and if you want to send me a private message, I'm always active in the group, or just join and jump in. You know, some great conversations going on in there. And I also have a website, nolimitsnation.com. But I'll be honest with you, I'm probably more active in the Facebook group than I am on the website right now. So the best place is probably the Anxiety Free Executive.
Perfect. I will link to that. Would love for you guys to just get more of Mike in your life and all of these amazing messages. And thank you for being on. So lovely to learn from you. And I appreciate you sharing your journey and your expertise. And for our interview today, Mike, I mean, do you feel like it's complete, or is there anything that's like, you know what, like I need to make sure that this is a message, this is something that needs to be said for this to be complete?
The only thing I would say to add to, and thank you so much for having me on. I love, you know how much a big fan of your work I am, and you in general. But I would tell people that you don't have to struggle, that you're not hardwired, you're not cemented in the struggles that you're experiencing right now. It could all be very temporary, and no matter in every area in your life, and you also hold all the cards. You have everything you need now to move in any direction you want. So it's not about waiting for someone else to change, or waiting to get the better job, or to meet your soulmate, or when your soulmate starts acting nicer, then you'll be okay. It's all about understanding that you have all the power, and that you don't have to struggle, that your life should be amazing in every area. And so I just want people to understand that just because you've experienced something in the past doesn't mean that has to be what you experience in the future.
Yeah, I love that. What a message of hope that I absolutely see resonate throughout, you know, all of the data that I gather is I help people. And so I can say an amen to all of that. Just,
Yep.
It's beautiful. We're just, you know, we're designed to be okay. Like you don't have to
Yes.
suffer.
Yes.
So
Our natural state of being, we're born, it's love, it's happiness, it's excitement. We crave happiness in life. That's what we want. We do everything in life with the goal of being happier. And so that's our natural state. So and that's what we deserve, every one of us. So, and no one is more deserving than another. We all deserve to be happy. And we can certainly all have that.
love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for being on. Be sure to check out more of Mike in, the link in the show notes, his amazing group with the Anxiety Free Executive. And for, any sort of help with food shoes is what I call them, my little mashup of like food issues. You can always go to lydialifestyle.com, where there is a free ebook with 14 interactive videos to help you on your journey there, and a link to the Facebook support group, Beat the Binge, which is a free support group with some amazing things going on. So there's help there. Check out the link for Mike's group, and really just take these messages of just love, and that you don't have to struggle, you don't have to suffer. Even just putting a few of these, you don't have to believe that they're true, just put a few of these into your life. Just focus on that mental diet. It's like putting good stuff in, and things can only get better from here. And so thank you so much, Mike, for sharing those tools with us.
Well,
And
thank you for having me. And anytime, I would do anything. Just anytime you want to do this, just ring me up and we'll jump on.
perfect. I feel like there's so much more to talk about, but we got some good
That's
stuff today. So, this is Mike and Lydia, the lifestyle coach, and we are signing off for today. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you.
You have so many options. You can watch more videos. You can subscribe for new videos every Monday. You can even join our Facebook group with an amazing support community.